Alright, hello everybody. Today we're just going to be talking about healer hierarchy going into Nighthold. So, recently I did a video about Holy Priest and what's wrong with it, and obviously a lot of people got a little bit butthurt on that because obviously their favorite class I called out was pretty bad because they lack some utility. Now, that's not to say their throughput or anything was bad. I did say at the very start of the video that their throughput was fine, and the majority of the comments that I got was about that their throughput is fine, so they're a good class. So they didn't actually address the core problem, that the utility just isn't there. They don't bring the same utility with all the other classes. So today we're going to go over in a more general scope about all the healers, and we're going to go through and put together, what is the best healers going into Nighthold. So if we're going to look at some stats just from Emerald Nightmare, we can see that this is for the 75th percentile. So this is the best 25% of people playing the class, and what kind of healing they're putting out. So as expected, with the Resto Druid on top, that's just for pure throughput. That's exactly where Resto Druid wants to be viable. They need to be the top throughput healer because their healing is not very reactive at all. Holy Paladin next up. That just shows that Holy Paladin is in a really good spot. Holy Paladin brings a lot to a raid. It has a lot of different cooldowns with the different talents you can take with Devo Aura. It can have some huge healing cooldowns. It can have some huge burst damage. There's a lot a Holy Paladin can do. Their mastery is kind of restrictive, but that can always be played around with things like Rule of Light, which does increase it. They can take different talents to increase that. So, in general, you can see they can get around that, and their throughput is generally high. The Mistweaver Monk is actually doing fairly well. I will change one thing and make this for only 7.1 because that came out last week. So you can see the Mistweaver Monk did actually get a buff last week, and that did increase their healing. Now, the problem with Mistweaver Monk is that in heavy damage situations, they tend to go a lot quicker than most other healers. So they have a cap to their healing, how much throughput they can do, that they can do effectively, and then pretty much anything over that is extremely ineffective, and that just comes from how ineffective Essence Font is. Now, that's not really a bad thing about the class, but you can see on a fight like Cenarius, that's when monks generally fall behind a little bit. And that's when your druids and your holy priests and your Resto Shamans come in front there. So your top three throughput really are Resto Druid, Mistweaver, and Holy Paladin, Holy Priest. They're all pretty much consistently on top. Now, if we're looking at both Holy Priest and Mistweaver Monk, they don't really bring much utility to the raid. So your Mistweaver Monk has Cocoon, which is a really bad tank cooldown. It's not terrible, but it doesn't really work. Just because a pure absorb on someone who's taking a lot of damage just isn't amazing. And then Holy Priest, again, just not any real utility. You can't really call a part like a healing spell in their rotation part of its utility. It does have some minor things like Guardian Spirit, but again, not really game changing. You're never going to bring a priest because you want a Guardian Spirit. All the other utility tends to get tied to the priest class in general and not the Holy Priest. And that kind of is a problem. And then obviously we have the Resto Shaman, easily the best healer this tier, just because how much utility they have. So they have their totem, which they can just put down, free passive healing to everybody in the raid. They have crazy utility. They have a very wide range of choices through their talents. They have Spirit Link Totem. They give everybody HP. You can bring two of them. You can get an Ancestral Protection Totem. They have the shortest interrupt in the game, and it's on a 12-second cooldown, and it's ranged. So yeah, there's just a lot a Resto Shaman brings to a raid. So that's why you saw a lot of guilds just running flat two of them. And I think that trend is still going to continue into Nighthold, where just a lot of guilds are picking up two Resto Shamans. And then obviously we have the interesting class, the Disc Priest. Now, I would easily rate Disc Priest as the best class. It's really funny to see people still kind of think Disc is bad. So we'll have I want to just highlight one thing here. So obviously 75th percentile, the best 25% of people, disc is doing alright in throughput, considering it's providing a lot of damage to the raid. Its throughput's actually a lot higher than what I expected it would be going into this expansion. It would be viable even with a lot less healing. But if we go to this, and we go to the max percentile here, you can see how much more Disc Priest will spike up, and that just shows you how hard the class is in comparison to the other ones. Well, not hard the class is, but what kind of skill cap exists. So Disc Priests, and that's also to do with innovates, that if the Disc Priest gets an innovate, they can do a whole lot more healing. So, you know, a high-end Disc Priest, if you're talking about in the cutting edge of progression, they are one of the best healers because they are doing the highest throughput. Another thing to look at, you know, if we're looking at really the hardest boss of this tier, you know, scenarios where, you know, it's a lot of healing, it's quite stressful on all the healers, there's a lot going on. You know, you can see Resto Druid, HPS King on top, Disc Priest, you know, in 620k HPS, you know, at max rating there. So that's a lot of healing, followed by the Holy Priest, and pretty much then the healing hierarchy. You see the Mistweavers kind of falling behind, and that's just because how they do have that cap on what they can heal. And that's the same with the Resto Shamans. So yeah, so right now, like if you're looking at pure like throughput wise, you know, this is pretty much the hierarchy for throughput wise in the most ideal of situations, and that's fine. Holy Paladin probably would be a bit higher. You'll find on scenarios a lot of the Holy Paladins sit there and heal the Drake tank. So Holy Paladin probably would be above Holy Priest in just raw throughput. But you know, throughput hierarchy isn't really a big thing. You know, obviously you see how much stronger the Resto Druid when it comes into a situation like this. You know, they just do have a much greater potential than everybody else, and that's fine because their healing is all, you know, based around a 18-second hot. So yeah. But now, one thing, you know, in the cutting edge of progression you do want to be looking at is how much damage each class can put out. So as I did say in the Holy Priest video, that because the Holy Priest damage is tied around 2 stacks of Holy Fire, that you have to be constantly casting Smite to be getting off those Holy Fires, yeah, the damage does lack. And this is the same with the Holy Word Chastise, is that you have to be casting Smite constantly to be reducing the cooldown on Chastise. So you see Holy Priest well behind everybody else. You know, well, not well behind Shaman and Druid, but Shaman second. Let's actually go 95th to have a greater look at it. So that more, you know, exacerbates the difference between them all. So you have Resto Shaman, you know, Resto Shaman, Resto Druid a bit above. And then obviously Holy Paladin, you know, they can do a crazy amount of bursts in their wings. Now, Mistweaver Monk, the reason why that's so high is because the actual damage is part of their rotation. So generally in Mythic fights, you're not going to be seeing a whole lot of, you know, healers, especially in hard Mythic fights. They're not going to be, you know, tunneling on the boss and doing a lot of damage, because there is actually a lot of stuff to heal. But Mistweaver Monk, because it's actually part of their rotation, because it resets them their Thunder Focus T, the damage generally is really high. So that is an advantage you get by bringing in a Mistweaver Monk. That's an advantage a lot of the other healers don't have. But the question is, why would you bring that over a Disc Priest when a Disc Priest does almost more than double the damage, or more than double the damage, and has a higher potential for healing, and, you know, arguably brings more utility. So, you know, they still have powered shield, which is kind of a nice preemptive shield with Rapture. Their burst healing is the highest in the game. If you have a good, you know, Disc Priest burst healing constantly, they can put out a crazy amount of healing. So yeah, just, you know, there's between the Mistweaver and Disc Priest comparison, Disc Priest does come out on top, in my opinion. But yeah, so now we're gonna get into some actual, you know, anecdotal evidence, but we're just gonna go look at, you know, what the top guilds are running right now. So obviously Exhaustus rank 1 for this tier. So on there they've killed Xavius now 3 times. So in the Xavius skill, they're bringing Resto Shaman, 2 Resto Shamans, Resto Druid, and a Holy Paladin. Now obviously this is a lot of their ults combined, but through this you can see kind of what classes they're going to be running. So Resto Shaman, Holy Paladin, Resto Druid, Mistweaver Monk. And it should be about the same thing for this. So Resto Druid, Holy Paladin, Mistweaver Monk, and Resto Shaman. So same thing with Method. So we'll go to their first. Yeah, so they've two. So they've Resto Druid, 2 Resto Shamans. What's the other healer? They would have another Resto Druid. It's just not showing up, I don't think. Maybe they 3-healed that. Scotty. Okay, so Holy Paladin, Disc Priest, double Resto Shaman. So you can go through pretty much all of these top guilds and see what they're running. I did this yesterday. There is, the general consensus is Resto Druids, Resto Shamans, few Disc Priests, and then the occasional, a lot of Holy Paladins. And then I saw 1 Holy Priest and about 2 Mistweaver Monks. Now, if that's not representative of what the best healers are at the moment, I don't know what is. If people are going to argue that Holy Priest is fine because of its throughput, then yeah, okay, it's fine because of its throughput, but it still doesn't have any throughput. And you can see all the top guilds pretty much not doing. So Serenity here we have Resto Shaman, Holy Paladin, Resto Druid, double Resto Druid, Resto Druid, Holy Paladin, Disc Priest, Resto Druid, Mistweaver, Resto Shaman. So this is the trend that goes from every guild. Basically no guilds are running Holy Priests. Barely any guilds are running Mistweavers. And why is that? That is because their throughput is not like a Resto Druid's. Their utility is almost non-existent in comparison to the other healers. Now, if throughput is what you're concerned about, why is every guild running 2 Resto Shamans? So I wouldn't be surprised to see come Nighthold that you see double Resto Shaman, Resto Druid, and a Holy Paladin. And then you have a Disc Priest that swaps in for some fights. Whether it needs to be 5 healed, you bring a Disc Priest. Whether there's a Titan Rage, you bring a Disc Priest. Maybe you drop the Holy Paladin. Maybe you drop a Resto Shaman. And that's exactly the role the Disc Priest can take. The Disc Priest, can play Shadow if he needs to play Shadow. The stats are exactly the same. That's what I'm expecting. Double Resto Shaman, Resto Druid, Holy Paladin, and the 5th healer being a Disc Priest, Shadow Priest. They can just swap between. So obviously this is kind of concerned in the top end. Obviously all the healers are in actually a really, really, really balanced spot throughput wise at the moment. Every healer is doing what they're supposed to. We have a lot of them. It's good to see that Resto Shaman's kind of falling behind now because it does just bring just a ridiculous amount of throughput. But you can really just see the power, what classes are going to be, what people are planning on taking into Nighthold. So I hope this helps you kind of get an understanding of what the healers are doing at the moment, what the healers are bringing to a raid, and if you're down to trying to pick your last healer in your raid group, this may be something to consider. Whether you want to pick up a second Resto Shaman, or maybe you don't have a Resto Druid and you want a Resto Druid, or maybe you want to flash out and get a Disc Priest. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.